So, hi, everybody. Welcome to this hot July night. So I'll call the select board meeting to order at 6:30 on July 16th. I just got back from Tennessee last night, which is normally hotter than here, but I don't think we've got them beat by much. So anyway, we will persevere. Okay, so we always start our meetings out with public comment, which is for topics that are not on the agenda for the public to let us know about anything they think we should know. There's no one here. Anybody in the audience? Okay. So can you bring over Ms. Houlihan? She's there. Hi, Marnie, you're on.
Thank you, Marnie Houlihan, 26 Clifford Road. The agenda item is on there about my open meeting law complaint. You usually do not allow public comment in between. So my only comment is I'm not satisfied with town council's response, and I will be pursuing with the Attorney General office on, I still do not believe that you guys properly filed the right documentation to hold a discussion without public notice. That's all I wanted to let you know. I know you're voting on that later today, but I just wanted to let you know I will be pursuing that further.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Vanessa? Okay. All right, moving on. So I'm going to declare tonight Women's Night. We got a couple of women we're going to honor tonight. And I'll start off, but anybody that wants to say anything about Donna McDaniel, please do, because there's plenty that we could say about her, and all good. So as everyone probably knows, she died in the last few days. She was 89 years old. She did a lot of things in this life. We could talk about her for a long time. I know Vanessa knew her well. I used to carry her back and forth to town meeting when she stopped driving the last few years. So she was just a delightful human being, but I'm declaring it Women's Night because she was our first female select board member. I don't know how many we've had in total since then, but she's the one that certainly started paving the way to have females on the select board. But she just was one of these people that I don't think anyone could ever say anything bad about. She was highly educated and knowledgeable and really cared about this town and was always willing to discuss things. She listened to you. And if you remember the things she said at the last few town meetings, she always had something to say that made you sit up. And she did it in a pleasant, constructive manner, which should be instructive to people today. You know, what we hear sometimes, she just really is the way to do business and get things done. So she will be remembered, I think, for a long, long time, and what a good, long, productive life she had. Anyone else? Vanessa, you want to say anything? Okay.
No, the one thing I just wanted to add that we were talking about her recently in some of my communication with different people involved in the tricentennial, that a number of years ago, Donna sat down and did a lot of oral histories with people like John Boland and many others, some of our World War II veterans who have now passed away, because she really wanted their stories, written down in paper. So, other residents and younger folks in Southborough, really knew what those contributions were. So, in addition, she was our editor of the annual town report for quite a few years. She started by helping us, put together all the written content for our very first website. So in addition to, of course, her work here on the select board, I just wanted to note some of the other wonderful things she provided to the town.
And I'll also add that one year I was sitting at the front and looked out. She got to the microphone and she waved at me like this. I'd forgotten to pick her up for town meeting, and she was letting me know it in a very nice way. And she'd gotten a ride there. And of course, the minute I saw her, I knew what I'd done. But she forgave me, and because that's who she was. So anyway, okay, moving on. So the next item is going to be the promise review of the retiree health program that we started 1/1/24. So as most people know, we've got a informal committee that meets to discuss the insurance needs of all, including the retirees. So tonight, Ryan Donovan is representing that group, and as well as Brian Ballantyne. And then we've got two people here from NFP who has been our longtime healthcare consultants. So Brian, do one of you want to take it from here as far as what we're going to talk about?
Sure. To my left is Ryan Donovan, the library director, who's been really helpful in the IAC and going through this process. So I'm glad he's here. And to my right is William Short and Ken Lombardi from NFB, who represents the town and their interests with the healthcare and renewals and data and all that sort of thing. So as you know, we did send out a survey. I believe it was 8 questions long that we mailed to approximately 180 retirees. Like the document says, we have a 30% participation rate, which, as I understand for these type of surveys, is not bad. You would probably think that's terrible. It really isn't. Again, as mentioned in the documents tonight, 79% of the overall satisfaction was rated an 8 or 9 or 10, just we thought was really positive. We did have a IAC meeting in June, early June, to discuss this. We did have a few people, not even a handful, maybe a handful, show up for retirees. And they voiced some concerns about getting the proper authorizations for treatments and stuff, which I will let Ken and William here talk about a little further why that is. But I think overall, the takeaways I had 4 takeaways from the process, and Ryan, I don't know if he agrees or not, but I think the comments centered around the Silver Sneakers program for Fallon that we used to offer. A lot of retirees have mentioned that in the past. They missed that program. We may be able to do something about that. Again, you're welcome to comment after this, but we will be renewing probably October. We'll start talking about it. Late October, mid-October. So we'll look at that and see if maybe we can't resolve that. There's like 3 other areas I think maybe that were common comments. One was we only offer one plan. We know that. Again, there's reasons for that I'll allow our 2 gentlemen to explain why that is. The prescription process, some people thought it was a little confusing. That's not unusual, I think, in a lot of the mail order prescriptions for retirees. It's very confusing. However, if they use retiree first, it's much, much easier. We're finding some of the problems with the individual cases are when they try to do it on their own with the doctors. It's a very, I don't even understand healthcare half the time, so it's a very confusing process. So we're trying to guide them to that. And the last thing is the delays for services. I don't know if I mentioned that. So there's 4 areas that I thought that were kind of brought forward. But again, there's reasons for that too. Almost every case that we had issues with, we resolved completely or almost completely. And there was reasons for if there was a delay in something. Once you dug into every situation, you can see what happened at the doctor's office or what happened with the process of why it may have gotten delayed or something. So where I think overall, I'm fairly satisfied with the program. I think it's really good. Most of the residents most of the retirees have been positive towards it. We do have a savings that I'll mention again, and it's actually close to $90,000 a year the town saves for this plan, and more importantly, the retirees are saving more than double that on their end. So it's a lot of, we did hear a lot about that too, how they appreciate the savings, fixed incomes and all that. It's important for the retirees. We forget that sometimes a little money goes a long way for them. So, Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I will say I've been on the IAC for years and we haven't really had members of the public ever come to our meetings. So it's actually been nice to interface with some of the retirees, even if it is at times when they're frustrated about navigating the process. But I will say, I think I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think so is Janice Conlon, who kind of represents the retirees, in how successful this has been. For the most part. I mean, I think with any healthcare transition, there are going to be a few hiccups, a few bumps, but I really have to commend Brian and Emily in Brian's office for spending necessary time with retirees, going over, the changes and then really responding to them as quickly as they can. And we've tried to resolve those issues as fast as possible, I think. So that's all I'll say. Just thanking Brian and Emily too. I think that's important because they really spearheaded the charge in this. And yeah.
So have comments about the plan or in general, something you talk about Medicare?
You'll have to come, you have to grab the microphone.
Yeah, we can.
Just to echo one of the items that Brian mentioned was, retiree first, the concierge service that we do have as part of the program has been instrumental for a number of retirees. I think overall, we continue to try and educate retirees. If they're attending a meeting here, we talk about the retiree first and making sure that you're engaging with retiree first if there's any questions or concerns, not only from a physician standpoint, but if there are questions around Medicare, if they have questions about their eligibility and so forth. So from that standpoint, that plays a key role in just getting retirees to make that call first. Brian mentioned pre-authorizations and a couple of delays we had with pre-authorizations for care. Many times retirees will be frustrated if they're trying to work directly with the physician or provider's office to get those pre-authorizations, whereas Retiree First can intercede and make calls on behalf of the retiree to make sure that the paperwork is in good order and it's arriving at the place that it needs to be. So from that standpoint, continuing to try and make progress there. The Silver Sneakers program is an option. We'll have conversations with Aetna to see if there's a possibility of replacing the current benefit, which is up to $300 annually for wellness, health-related reimbursement for the Silver Sneakers. The difference there is that the Silver Sneakers is primarily affiliated with gyms. So it's a gym membership reimbursement versus the wellness program that we have in place now, where if an individual took a weight reduction class or bought a Peloton or a treadmill for home, they'd be eligible for that reimbursement where they may not be under the Silver Sneakers. So there's a distinction there, but it seems to be pretty clearly resonating that many retirees want to see the Silver Sneakers.
Yeah, I think the one comment I'll make is, interestingly enough, the largest populated plan that was in effect was a Tufts Medicare supplement plan. And I think it had the largest enrollment. That plan's actually being terminated. So whether or not we had an inclination, that plan would have terminated on 1/1 of 2025. It's no longer going to be offered. And that's got a lot to do with the Tufts and Harvard Pilgrim .32 merger. The other thing we'll comment on is that, and again, not that we spend a lot of time making the decision based on this, but CMS is making some major changes to reimbursements in the Medicare world that are going to have a negative impact on the industry. So I think that the town is well positioned to manage against the increases that we would have otherwise seen. And part of that's because of guarantees that have been implemented with the current program. So we'll probably be able to estimate what the additional savings would have been had the plans remained. But, our most expensive plan was at $477 in 2023. And that rate's probably going to go over to $500 at this next renewal. And obviously we're not in that position, but cost is a big issue for ultimately the recommendation for this product. So, and I really don't have much more to add other than that.
So Brian, your four were delay in referrals, complexity in RXs, and wanting Silver Sneakers. What was the fourth one? Okay, one option. So, but am I right in that we've got locked in the rates for 25 also? So a 5% increase or something like that?
We had gotten some approval from Aetna that they would not raise the rate more than 3%.
3.
We're in the process of validating that right now, making sure that we're in line with that. And that's what the premise that we're going on right now.
Oh, that's even better. That's even better. So at this point, is there any reason to think that you're not going to recommend renewing this for 25? Okay.
Let's get that on audio.
So yeah, because I can't speak for every member of the IAC, but to me, this is working. So I would vote to continue with it. It seems like it's we've been able to manage any of the issues that have come up, and I think that process will continue for the next year. So, but I do think we should continue to evaluate it. You know, it's still new. So I think maybe checking in next summer about how it's going and maybe getting additional feedback from retirees. You know, we can invite them to an IAC meeting, see how it's going.
Well, the fact that there's no one here tonight, I think is probably bodes well. Well, okay, so I'll start. Al?
No, I was a little skeptical at first,
Sure.
and I'm pleasantly surprised by the feedback.
Marguerite?
Does yes, it looks wonderful. Does retiree first stay in place as long as it is Southborough's retiree plan? Okay, thank you.
Sam?
I'm glad to see this result. I thought it conceptually sounded very good. And I will say that I've had nobody over the past year come to me and complain that this is terrible. I've had, I guess, 3 people come by and chat with me and say, I thought it was going to be terrible, but I'm very happy with it. So I think that's pretty good. The survey, I think, is interesting because surveys, I've done a lot of survey work in my career. They tend to poll people who actually have a problem or have a concern about something. And so we've got 30% response rate here. And of that 30%, but 80%, something like that, says that they're pretty satisfied with it, which is a pretty small percentage of people who have concerns. And sadly, anytime you make a change, you're going to have people who have difficulties. I have followed several particular cases over the year where people did have problems. And there were some places where, frankly, I think Retiree First didn't handle it perfectly, but finally got the pieces in place. Others where there was good support from the concierge service there to get things straightened out. And I'm not aware of anything now that is pending out there that is a major problem that there's no solution to, which there may be, but I have not heard about it. The silver sneakers thing is interesting because I'm pretty sure Aetna does offer silver sneakers to a number of their plans. So they deal with silver sneakers. I think the point that you make is interesting in that my view is that the wellness benefit, for me at least, would be far more flexible than silver sneakers. I would much rather have the opportunity to take the money and buy the program that I want versus just having silver sneakers and basically being forced into that. That's a great program. I actually knew the people who actually started that years ago. And again, a good program and many people can benefit from it. But to me, a choice of approach there is something that's pretty valuable. And apparently not everybody shares that view. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, it sounds like it's going exceptionally well, particularly given the concerns a lot of people raised originally. And I think it makes a lot of sense to renew and as Ryan suggests, continue to evaluate as it goes along and make sure that it's going to continue to perform. And a 3% increase for next year is remarkable. People, I don't think, appreciate the pressure that healthcare is under in terms of price increases. In my day job, you hope for 10% or less and take a little more these days. So that's great, assuming that's going to come in pretty much on that track. So again, good job and hope it continues. Thank you.
We'd love to have 3% on the active side. My goodness. Andrew?
I don't really have anything to say that hasn't already been said.
So maybe before you really decide, if Aetna agrees to do silver sneakers, maybe you still want to make sure that people really understand what they're giving up here. Grass is always greener on the other side. But I agree with Sam. I'd much rather have the flexibility of spending the $300 the way I want to versus being told this is where you got to go. So I would make that decision very cautiously so that you don't get then the big outcry for wanting the $300 back. Right. All right. So, thank you guys. This is great.
Vote on something?
No,
No?
what do you want to vote on?
Just to continue as is.
Vote on that we're happy with the program?
Yeah. Okay,
No, I don't, I know nothing we were supposed to vote on tonight.
good.
Thank you.
Guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, NFP.
you.
So is he in the audience?
Barry's in the audience, yes.
Okay. So Vanessa, you want to bring Barry over, and Barry's going to need to call the cable committee to order because he definitely has a quorum. They're all here.
Great. Good evening,
up,
and I do call the Cable TV Committee to order. So the document that you have in your packets is essentially identical to the one you saw now 6 weeks ago when we held a public hearing on this. Since that time, the lawyers for both sides have been tweaking the documents as lawyers are wont to do. So there've been some language changes, but nothing significant from either the committee's point of view or I hope your point of view. The only difference from the summary that you received from council at the public hearing was our original proposal called for Verizon to provide 3 encoders, which would allow SAM to theoretically broadcast live from a number of locations in town. Verizon was not interested in doing that, but they agreed to increase the capital payments that they would make to SAM by $3,500, which will cover the cost of the encoders. So not really a substantive difference. The committee feels strongly that this license is both, well, we know it's richer from a capital payments point of view than the current license, which is significant given the large drop in subscribers that Verizon has experienced. But we also think that it's a stronger license in protecting the town based on the excellent efforts of counsel that we have used, Bill Solomon, who I think is on the call and will be available to answer questions. So with that, the committee has voted to unanimously recommend to the select board that they approve this Verizon renewal license. So I'll open it for any questions you might have.
Al, you want to start?
No questions.
Marguerite?
No.
Sam, I'm not going to go to you yet. I'll let you do the motion. So to be clear, the cable committee is Barry, Will, and Sam.
Yeah.
So Sam is well aware
I have
of.
a lot of questions.
So Sam's going to ask himself some questions here. Andrew?
No questions. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Will, for the work on this committee.
So I've got one question or one request. So as everyone probably knows, SAM, Southport Access Media, is a separate 501c3. It was formed, I don't know, it's probably 10 years now, 15 years. So we built up the PEG money for a while. It was about $700,000 and turned it over to SAM when SAM actually got off the ground. So SAM is a totally separate legal entity. It's got its own board, nothing to do with the town. Basically their entire revenue comes from these PEG fees that we give them dollar for dollar. We don't keep anything. So my question to the cable committee is, who's paying Mr. Solomon's legal fees for negotiating this contract?
Okay, that's an excellent question.
Thank you, Barry.
So we have, going back to the original renewal license negotiations starting now more than 5 years ago, we had discussions with SAM on that subject. And it was my strong feeling that since the town receives no revenue as a result of this, that SAM should contribute, and I felt pay all of it. Last time around, they agreed to pay 50% of it. This time around, I engaged in discussions with their board on this and was advised that their board voted I guess unanimously, not to contribute anything to the legal fees. So that's where we stand at the moment.
What a deal. We pay the bills and they get the revenue. I think I mean, I don't know what mechanism we've got. I don't remember what the agreement between the town, if we have a legally binding agreement with Sam says, but we should withhold the money for the fees and turn over the net money. There's just no reason for the legal fees not to come out of the revenue here. There's no reason for us to bear that cost.
I think the Cable TV Committee agrees.
Okay.
And in fact, there was an agreement with Sam about passing the fees along to them from 2016 or 15 that, according to town council, is no longer in force. So, and it's clear that by law, that money comes to the town first. So that goes through us, and we would have the opportunity to remove that amount of money from what Sam gets if we chose to. But ideally, we want to continue to, I think, talk with them and reach an agreement. But Barry, as he said, has approached them and didn't get very far. So,
Well, maybe you
TBD.
go back and say select board feels strongly, assuming everybody else feels strongly that the legal fee should be paid out of the revenue. There's no reason for us to bear that cost if we're going to give them 100% of the revenue. I take a deal like that all day long. Will, do you agree?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. So hopefully we'll hear back from you guys. I'm happy to help.
Okay.
I think what?
I'm happy to approach them again and continue the dialogue.
Okay. All right. So good job, guys. It sounds like this is a really nice contract, more revenue, and we got this one done. This is 5 years?
5 years. I guess the early out is about 2.5 years if they choose to. But Kathy, I'd also comment that this has been running for a long time now, this agreement, and the cable world is changing dramatically, moving strongly towards streaming. Verizon's customers have dropped substantially over the last 5 or 10 years. And same thing for Comcast and Charter, our other two carriers. And so I think this is a really good deal, and that we got more money for capital from them. And we also, last time around, went out and got bids on the legal work, because the legal work in the past, I think, had been less than perfect. And so we now have Mr. Solomon, who's got a lot of experience with this, who's done an excellent job tightening up a lot of the language around this. And so we've got a much better agreement that pays more money to the town, and I think is puts us in a good position to deal with Comcast and Charter now, because the usual trick is you get Verizon, which is the big one here, and then try to leverage that into the other carriers. And so I think we've got a good base to work from here. So again, good work by Mr. Solomon, and we hope we can get this signed and then move on to get the other two renewed.
All right. So we've got a motion in front of us. Sam, you want to read the motion?
Okay. I move the select board as cable television license issuing authority votes as follows: to grant a cable television renewal license with an effective date of November 26, 2024 to Verizon New England. All terms and conditions contained in the renewal license having been signed by Verizon, and Verizon by and through its representative will execute the renewal license as set out in the signature page of the license as signed by the board consistent herewith. And the agreement is the agreement in the packet.
We have a second?
Second, one thing in the packet, we need to update as the chair.
Yeah, we've actually fixed that.
Okay,
Sorry,
all right.
typo.
Minor. Okay. So we've got a motion. We've got a second. Any further discussion? So all in favor of approving the new Verizon contract? 0. So thank you very, very much for doing this. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Sam.
And thank you, Bill Solomon.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Bill Solomon. Absolutely.
Thank
So,
you.
Barry, I move to adjourn the Cable TV Committee meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Come on up, Kat. Welcome. Glad, nice to see you again. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then I've got one quick question before you get started.
Yes, Catherine McKee, 18 Walnut Drive and South Florida Trails Committee Chair.
So on the memo you wrote, can you just look and see, look under number 2, is 2C a typo? It says to spend 45,000 instead of 15?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're asking to increase the 15 to 45?
I'm asking just to move it from one bucket to another. That's
Okay, so that wasn't clear, so make it clear before you leave. Okay,
Can you
so
speak
it's all yours.
Closer to the microphone there.
Can you hear me?
Uh,
That sounds like it's live.
Okay, good.
You can hear me?
Yep.
It's still pretty,
You yell at us, everybody.
Can you hear me now?
That's
that's
better.
better.
Great. Okay. You want me to start or do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the primary reason we're here is twofold. One is we've already received an approval from the select board for ARPA funds. So we're here to make specific requests of that approved funding to appropriate for projects that we had assigned the money for. So, and then to also just provide an update on the Peninsula Trail Phase 2, so that you know where we're at that. Okay, so I'll start with the update on the project. Basically, where we are is Beals and Thomas is our engineering services firm, and they have started the process of the permitting. So we've done the wetland delineation, we've gathered the documents, they're putting together the permitting information and they're going to be presenting in front of the Southborough and Conservation Commissions in August. And we should be submitting for NOI and RDA in that timeframe, and hopefully we'll have that permitting. And it does depend on the Mass DEP, how long they'll process the permitting, which there have been some delays, we've been told. So hopefully we'll be ready and prepared to go to bid in September, so they can continue to prepare the bid documents.
So this is the trail itself.
Yeah, this is the bridge and boardwalk part of the
Okay.
trail.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay. So any questions on that?
So maybe let's start out with just a recap for the board, what you've been approved for, just to make sure, because there's 3 buckets here as far as I'm concerned, right? So why don't you just go through each bucket?
Okay.
Was
So-
all ARPA. Have you got CPC money too?
Yes.
Okay, so talk about the 3 things and then where the funding's coming from. And I've got the spreadsheet here so I can,
Okay, so. the
verify
bid
everything.
work Approved an amount of 144,547, right? That's one bucket. That was for the Peninsula Trail. Basically, we're spending that money on the boardwalk right now we're spending on the engineering services for the boardwalk and bridge. The second bucket was 15,000 for a crosswalk. A third bucket was 12,500 for trail enhancements. That's just ARPA.
Okay. Okay, so got that. Now go back. So I interrupted, so go back to where you were. So we got our buckets, so now talk about each piece of it.
So number one, the engineering services. So what we're asking to do is spend up to 35,000 of our 144 that's already been approved for engineering services for paving of the 2 ADA parking spots that we have already created with in-kind support from DPW, and for the engineering services to do the paving.
Okay, so you want us tonight to approve up to 35K for that bucket,
Yes. And we
Okay.
don't expect to spend that, but
and that's coming out of the 144.
correct.
Okay.
That's- we have a buffer in there just in case there's unexpected things, because that is coming up.
Understand? Keep going.
Okay. Crosswalk number 2. So we originally had 15,000, and that was based on an estimate we received from VHB a few years ago. So since then, the reason I've increased that number is because there's a few unknowns. It has to do with the placement of the crosswalk is going to be, and whether we can just do stripes, or if we have to do flash and beacons and stuff. And then we also have a Mass DOT permitting fee, which is 7,000. So there's additional cost embedded in that. So that's why that number is 45. And we're going out to quote to get 3 of those quotes.
Okay, now, we've got 15 in the ARPA bucket for this. Where are you suggesting we get the other 30?
The 144.
So you want that to come out of the 144 too? Okay.
Okay. And then
Okay.
trail enhancements, we basically have 7,056 left of the 12,500. And we're looking to build a few bog bridges, which are just basically to side-by-side planks. It's not a formal bridge, so don't get caught up on that we're building another bridge. And some small boardwalks in town where the trail is wet and needs some protection. And then shelving for the tool shed that we purchased from this money, and benches and trail signage that we had already along the trail that's not related to the Peninsula Trail.
So this is a different trail.
It's all over town. the
Okay.
Trails that we maintain.
Okay, so this is general
Go to
trail enhancement.
Forest, it could go to Sudbury Reservoir Trail, anywhere.
Okay, now this is the first time you've come in and said, I'm ready to spend the 144, correct?
No, the engineering services we went through in February, we were approved to spend up to 90,000. That was of the
90?
90.
Okay, so
We
that's,
actually can't technically spend 90 because the contract amount was 62 and we can't have a change order for more than 25%. So the total amount that we can spend of that 90 is in the low 70s. That came out in May when I met with Carla.
okay, but 90 and 35 and 45 is going to get you more than 144.
Right, that's why you're not adding those numbers up.
Okay,
Right.
all right. So the third part is easy. Okay, we get that one's easy. Okay, but I'm still, it looks to me like the crosswalk is going to cost a whole lot more than what you thought originally.
It might not. It might not. I talked to VHB today to get a little clarity on what dictates why when we put flashing crosswalk in versus just stripes. And it wasn't really clear that we actually need to put a beacon in. And if we think about Route 30, there's the crossing near Lynbrook. There's just some stripes on the road where they cut open the guardrails. So there's not flashers there. And that's a high, speed area. So we may not be required to put flashers and that would make the difference in the cost, right? So we're looking to spend as little as possible, but balance safety with cost, right? So
Okay.
we're gonna need some recommendations from our engineering services on what we can do there.
But the road is curved.
BKW, Bill Cundy was sitting right behind you. Do you know that? So he's listening to this very closely.
The expert
Yeah, but the road is curved there. There's
It
a
is
sight
curved.
line issue, right? So you may have,
crosswalk is gonna be.
or might need more than just a crosswalk if there's not enough sight line there, right? And MassDOT is the one who would determine that?
No, not necessarily. VHB would make or VHB is an example of an engineering firm that would make a recommendation.
Okay.
for placement of the crosswalk.
Okay.
And so in addition to that, like depending on where you put it, you may also need a small sidewalk from for example, the reason we're putting the crosswalk in is to get the parking at Sunapee, which I need to ask you a question about. So if we do put the crosswalk, not at the entrance of the driveway.
Yep.
We might have to have just a little bit of a sidewalk to meet the parking spot so that people can walk from the parking to across the road.
So do you believe at this point that with the ARPA money you've got, and the CPA money you've got, you can get this done?
Yeah.
You'll have enough money to do it? Because I'm still confused. I don't remember approving the 90, and it's not on my spreadsheet either. So you think we've already said, go spend 90?
Yes.
Okay, then we've only got 54 to approve tonight because we can't approve more than 144 in total.
Well, I think what you could do is if.
But we can only spend 70 of the 90,
spend
72 or something. Yeah.
because unless we change the contract, right? So we're not looking to spend more than, I don't have the number in front of me because unfortunately I had a small computer crash before I got here, but it's in the low 70s as to what I can spend.
And that's sufficient, you think?
73, 373. Yeah. and
That'll
that
be
should
sufficient for what you need?
Okay, but time's passing pretty quick. You know what their deadlines are. Why don't we just approve the rest of the 144 tonight? So you're done. You don't have to come back to us. Does anybody, I mean, she's got to get this done, right? We've said she gets 144, so let's just approve the rest of the 144. So she knows she's got the 144 available to spend when she gets everything done that needs to be done to get this done,
Yep.
right?
And if we do that, technically, we've got to get the contracts for this
Yeah, I understand.
established by the end of this year.
Yeah,
So you
that's the
you think you can do that?
Yes, because we actually need the engineering services and paving and such. We need that to help us meet our match for the Mass Trails grant. So that's an ASAP. So we are working right now to get quotes.
The 50,000. Okay.
But my question is for the crosswalk bucket. So this is the thing. So Sunapee said that we could have parking spots for the trail if we put a crosswalk in. What does the town need from Sunapee to, we probably need a letter of commitment or some sort of memorandum of understanding to say, yes, you can use these parking spots for how many years would you like that to be? so that we're, investing this money, we know we're getting something in return. What does the select board need from them? So I can go back.
Maybe get town council.
Yeah, so
Well,
obviously I agree. We
legal
need something in writing that everybody is on the same page with. So we'll get back to you on what we need on that. But back to what you're here for, which is to make sure you've got the authority to spend more money. I still don't see why we don't say, let's just make sure she understands she's got the 144 available to spend at this point so that she doesn't have to come back.
So
We've already approved this. This has been approved for a long time. This is nothing new.
and it would be, well, what we were actually asking, and if the board is open to it, would be the 144 plus the 15 plus the 12.5.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, so I agree. So those three buckets approve the rest of what she hasn't spent, which is most of it, tonight, so that she knows she's ready to go. And we're not holding her up because time is running out.
So I still don't get the math on what you just said. It's a 144 plus 15
Yep.
plus. It's one,
The remainder of the 12.5, yeah.
Yeah, so she has three buckets saying 144, she's right, 144, 15 and 12.5 is what we've proved on our ARPA spreadsheet, three different numbers.
all from ARPA. Okay.
Mhm. And then she's got the $50,000 grant from the state, and then she's got some CPA money on top of it, but that's not that's not our problem tonight, is those two things.
Okay.
Those are separate.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Going ahead with it.
Al,
Yes.
Marguerite?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yes, and then what will the remaining CPC? Okay, I see what the Mass Trails grant money would be used for. And then for the CPC funds, well,
Yes, so what we're gonna be using the CPC funds is we're going to bid, right? So the engineering services are putting together a bid package for the
Yep.
boardwalk, bridge and project manager. So the CPC funds will be used for that. And
okay,
ideally, in a perfect world, we go under budget and we don't spend all the CPC.
okay, thanks.
So, Kat, the trick is use the ARPA money first. Right? You got to get this money committed and it's got to be committed. Doesn't have to be, but it's got to be committed, legally committed by 12/31/24. And I know Carla is reminding everybody quite frequently. So, any comment?
No, I think just to be clear, the board has allocated funds for projects. But the way that, and I think the reason the CAT is back before you this evening is because now they're looking to make specific expenditures from the allocation. I don't disagree with what you want to do tonight, though, given in the interest of time.
I mean, we only have one meeting in August, and then we got town meetings, so I just
Right.
like to get her set from us. We're not the impediment here. Okay? All right, everybody okay?
Yes.
So I'll make the motion because I got the numbers in front of me. So I make a motion that we formally approve the expenditure of the following ARPA funds that were previously allocated. 12,500 for Southborough Trail enhancements, 144,547 for the Peninsula Trail, and $15,000 for the crosswalk. So so that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so you got your money. You're approved to go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. And then for timeline on the requirement from the town council, is that something we could put on a fast track, just so I can make sure I'm connecting with them and that we're all on the same page? Because we're not
Yeah.
going to do the crosswalk unless we have the appropriate.
Yeah.
All right, we will fast track it.
Seems to me that one, there's a gating factor there in terms of what do we want to ask for? So somebody needs to sit maybe with Kat and put the list together, say, here are the kind of things we want. Do we want a, 5-year agreement, perpetual agreement? Any other requirements around that in terms of what?
10-year at least.
Yeah. what
Okay, so why don't you start it? You send an email to Mark, copy Andrew and I, and just say, these are the things I think you need to consider in the agreement with. So how do I say, is it Sanofi or Sanofi? I never know.
I don't know.
They use
Sanofi.
both,
Sanofi,
actually.
Sanofi.
Sanofi, yeah.
Okay, so we'll say it's Sanofi.
And so maybe with that list, then the two of you work with town council to get whatever agreement we need.
All right, thank you for coming.
Can I say your perseverance is truly amazing?
We hope this is the year that the
Looking forward to walking on that trail.
I'm glad to see your mobility is
Yeah.
too. Good. Thank you.
Good night. Mr. Cundiff, come on up. So Bill is here tonight to talk about one change to the current water department regulations. He intends to overhaul all of them in the next year, but he's got one that he considers a pressing need, which we have started to discuss. It's been posted under section 43-2. So it's been posted for the public to allow the public to digest this and comment. So Bill,
Sure, thank you.
okay.
Bill Cundiff, DPW Superintendent. As you know, I work closely with the Water Department. Since I began working with the town, in 1 week, it'll be a year. So,
Hard to
since that
believe.
time, I cannot believe,
I know.
probably the most significant thing that surprised me in coming to the town was this issue that I'm bringing forth tonight. The communities I've worked for in the past certainly haven't had this issue. And in addition to that, I've done a survey of all of our surrounding communities, and they too do not do what Southborough does. So what Southborough does, we have regulations that were promulgated in 1987. And as Catherine pointed out, looking to update those over the next year or so. And do an overhaul. It still talks about some outdated organizational structure type things, and we need to go through and update those. But the most pressing thing in the regulations pertain to water services. And currently, the regulation reads, all service pipes 1 inch in diameter and less, up to and including the shutoff valve before the meter, shall be maintained by the water department. And the issue with doing that is it allows us through regulation to go on private property and repair service lines that are on the private property. So we periodically throughout the year, we monitor leaks in the system. Periodically throughout the year, we'll find that sometimes these service connections are prone to failure. And that means that we'll send a crew out, often either weekends or nights, to repair the leaking service line. And I think that's a benefit that the taxpayers at one time and now the users have enjoyed over, since the water department came into existence, or at least these regulations came into existence. So since I started about a year ago, we've had 4 of these issues. And the cost for repairing these issues in total is about $14,000 to the Water Enterprise Fund. And it was at 4 different locations. So we've had 4 over the course of a year, totaling $14,000. The highest one was $5,425, and the lowest was $1,631. So in addition to it's not just the fact that we're going on private property without any agreement before I started. That's the first thing I did was I talked to town council, and we now have a right of entry form that forms some form of agreement between the landowner and the water or the town, to ensure that, there are protections for the department now. There weren't before. We've had issues where we've gone on private property and, private owners have had concern with, plants that they've had, driveways being dug up, walkways settling after we've left, interior cabinets having problems with interior cabinets that we've had to remove to access piping. In my opinion, we shouldn't be doing any of that. These physical features that have been put in after the water line has been installed, we now have to deal with to repair a service. So as I pointed out, I surveyed all surrounding towns, the 2 towns I came from. None of these towns or communities perform work on the private property. They inform the owner of the leak. The owner then has an obligation to repair the leak. And, you know, often the towns will run a temporary line to the house to give them some period of time. We don't like to do that for very long. So I asked our chief water operator, you know, give me a few of your stories, experiences in doing these things. And in doing it, he's encountered septic systems where they've hit and destroyed distribution boxes, sometimes trenches for the septic system. The ability for the cost to escalate in these cases is tremendous. When we don't know what's going on the private property, there's finished surfaces and features. So one time they had to do a project under a deck. You know, and so when it gets a little hairy like that, we will sub it out to a third party because we certainly don't have that type of consistent expertise to do that sort of finished work. You know, we'll do water line repairs as a matter of fact, we did one last night. And the guys do a great job at that. This is really something to make us consistent with virtually every community in the Commonwealth. I asked PAR that. I said, are you aware of any towns that have a regulation that allows us to go on private property to service failed water services? And they don't know of any. So this is, number one, a protection for liability. Number two, to control cost. Number three, we shouldn't be on private property without an easement doing work to maintain a water feature. So the proposed change I have reads, all water service pipes located between the water main and the curb stop shall be maintained by the water department. So from the main to the curb stop, we own, which is generally roughly at the property line. Water services located between the curb stop and the water meter shall be maintained by the customer/owner. Water service leaks between the curb stop and the meter may result in water shutoff until the leak is repaired. Now, of course, that's going to be a case-by-case basis. If you find someone's non-responsive, we're going to work with them to get them a temporary source of water. Often it's from a neighbor. And every condition is going to be, you know, unique, but we'll work with them to the extent possible. This is not punitive. This is intended to improve the operation we have.
Question, Kathy?
Of course, you can ask a question, Marguerite.
I didn't know if I was speaking out of turn. How do you know when a water line between the curb and the house is broken?
There's a number of ways.
Watch for the water spout.
Sometimes you'll see the water coming up out of the ground. Other times it might be a slower leak, and annually or semi-annually, we will have a leak detection company come out and they will identify locations that have leaks.
You can hear that underground with the right
Correct.
sensitive audio equipment.
Al?
And so I have personal experience with this since I had to replace a water main in another house or the water line. And certainly the town I lived in did not offer to help. I mean, they were, other than helping me figure out where the water line was. So, and I agree with you. I think, you know, we should not generally be having public employees working on private property. I will note that you said you replaced 4 lines for $14,000. Gosh, that's a really good deal. I mean, quite seriously. I mean, I replaced the water line in, I think it was the early 80s. And I think I paid $5,000 or $6,000 to have it replaced. So maybe there's an opportunity for the town to make some money here. No, seriously, you know, we should not be working on private property as a general rule.
May I add to that?
Of course.
To that point, granted, we're not putting a profit margin on our work, okay? It's pretty much at cost. And I'm sure there's omissions in that list I gave you.
Yeah, you're not financing the equipment and stuff like that. You're
Correct.
using the stuff you already have, but
And the supervisory costs and all the overheads not here either. This is truly the labor, direct labor.
That's correct.
Mhm.
But to my point, it's actually, from a cost perspective, a lower cost than I anticipated per break or leak. So to that point, you know, I was a little nervous that it'd be $10,000 per issue. And that's not what I'm seeing based on the analytical. But again, this is only 1 year of data. So bear that in mind.
Yep.
you never know what you're going to find when you start digging.
That's right.
We've got some houses with very long driveways in this town, so you could see this
be.
number getting quite big if one of those were to break.
Yep.
Sam?
Return. I think this is the right decision, not only for the liability issues that you mentioned, but for me, it's sort of what's reasonable in the sense that for my house, for example, my builder put my water line in long ago. And if my builder did a poor job on that, then it seemed to me very unreasonable for the town to come in and backstop that job that was not done properly. I, as a property owner, should have seen that that was done right and bear the cost of any fix that's required for that less than perfect work. So I think for me, that's a strong rationale as well. There are some people who've told me that they think the town put their water line in, which may be the case, but probably many years ago, as a matter of fact. And I guess my view of that one is that they got a real bonus on that. So now it's time to pay their fair share of that, I think, in terms of service that everybody else should be paying for here. Also, people have expressed concern to me about hardship of somebody who's having financial difficulties and can't afford $5,000 or whatever for a water line fix. I'd point out that there are various programs in town to help people who have financial difficulty, which is unrelated to the water department. And so, for example, the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds have trust funds that are able to help people who have financial hardship. Senior Center has some emergency funds. Youth and Family has some emergency funds to help people. And often all three of those institutions work together with the community fund, for example, to find ways to support people when they have severe financial needs. So I think there are mechanisms for that, if people have questions about that, they could certainly call the Select Board office to ask for those kind of resources. And the other suggestion I'd make is that if my water line broke, I wouldn't know who to call other than my usual plumber, who I probably wouldn't call him actually for a variety of reasons. But my guess is that DPW has contractors that you work with for this kind of stuff. And if DPW had a list of contractors that you have worked with, but do not endorse, we don't endorse people necessarily, but here are people who do this kind of work that you might contact to do the work. I think that would be a good way to get people a start in the right direction to get it done. So
Sure, usually we would give out 3 names.
yeah, okay, good. So don't leave people in the lurch either financially or contractor wise there. I think that, again, this is long overdue, makes good sense to do it. And it's been a great benefit for people. But sadly, there are many things that we can no longer afford to do that are great benefits. And we got to be very careful about opening that door. So,
You know, of course, historically, we operated on the tax base. We relied on the tax base. And
Yep.
only recently, we transitioned to an enterprise fund. So we're no longer sharing the burden of the cost of these types of things.
yep. So,
You're on your own,
yep.
Right.
So I certainly support this.
Andrew.
I think you've convinced me, and I think one of the most persuasive points was just the fact that we stand alone in being one of the only communities that still has this type of system. And I know I benefited from it one time where I had an issue with the water line between the street and the house and didn't have to pay for it, but it was, I think it was a relatively minor situation, but I can see how for more, particularly for newer construction, the hypothetical, the example that Sam gave was a good one of where, particularly with newer construction, it's really something that should be the homeowner's responsibility.
Mhm. And I would also reinforce to your point, Andrew, that my experience and everything I've heard from people is that the water department does an outstanding job
Yes.
following up on these things, getting people pointed in the right direction. And my understanding would be if a water line broke, water department would be there to work with the homeowner to say, here's the problem and here's some names that you could call to get this done, and we'll help you get a temporary line
We
in
won't
place.
leave them in the lurch.
So-
We have an obligation anyway. to
Yeah.
help them, too.
Yeah, and a long history of strong support there as well, so.
I think that last statement's very important. You're not going to leave anybody in the lurch. One just factoid to add, I actually was talking to Kevin Miller yesterday, and he's done a lot of research because of the water tower in the cemetery. And apparently when the Southborough Water Department was formed in the 1930s, I think, he said that the town did pay for all the connections. So there probably are some pipes on the ground that the town did pay for. There was a fee charge, which, I don't know what it would be in today's dollars, probably small. It would sound small because it's $1930, but we did put those initial pipes in for people. So I'm convinced too. I don't need to ask any further questions. I think it sounds like,
Kevin has his hand up.
who does?
Kevin.
Okay, so Vanessa, can you bring Kevin over?
Hi, Select Board. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just be real quick, because it might help, and this is, I think, in support of Mr. Cundiff's position. The annual town report of 1930, town water service was voted in at a special town meeting in December of 1929. And by December of 1930, of the 522 houses in town, 383 were to be furnished with water hookups. And by the end of 1930, 252 of those houses had already been connected. And the language about connection is really actually very interesting. It notes, this is the report of the Water Commission. That was, the Special Water Committee was voted in by special town meeting in April of 1930. They report that services from the main pipe to the property line are owned by the town, but beyond that point, they are owned by and were installed at the expense of the property owner. So, and in fact, the way those lines were laid initially in 1930 was that they were laid by the water department under the direction of Thomas J. Boland, but paid for and understood as being owned by the homeowners. And people paid, if you're curious, in a range from a man named John Pierce paid $6.71 to hook up. William Boland paid $23.88. St. Mark's School paid $115, and the Southborough Arms paid $53.52 to hook up. So homeowners paid, but it was understood even then that the pipe, and again, paid for by the homeowner, installed by the town, but understood as owned by the property owner. So I think that's actually an argument in support of the way the select board seems to be trending here, and Mr. Cundiff's position. So I just
So
thought
if any of those pipes fail now, we go after the people who actually installed them back in 1930. So
yeah, exactly. But but my point was that even then, although the hookup charges were modest, and the work was carried out by the town, it was clearly understood upon installation that they became owned by the property owner.
similar to an arm's length contractor deal, effectively. So
Right,
that's a
right.
stronger argument for this.
So
Good. Thanks, Kevin.
thank you.
Anybody else, Vanessa?
Nope.
Anybody else?
Just one quick comment. Since your office would be fielding calls, and you will probably get calls from people who will say, what? If it sounds or seems like it might be a financial hardship, would it be to, I don't know, to just include just every single time saying, if it is a financial hardship, contact the select board or contact someone in the townhouse?
So as a regulation,
Yep.
the board acting as commissioners would have the ability to waive any of their own regulations. So it would be a waiver process that they would seek through the board.
As long as they're aware of, I'm just concerned that someone who can't really afford it.
I think Marguerite is suggesting that we have a small pamphlet of sorts that would say, you know, if you have a financial hardship, here are some resources that can help you
Sure.
pay for that. That's
Or a script.
a
that
script or
your Staff
yeah,
gets a call from
yeah,
someone.
a flyer, a one pager that says, you know, these are sources that can help you. Yeah. You know,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? So Sam, you want to make the motion to adopt the changed water regulation?
I move that we approve the change proposed by Mr. Conniff in the water regulations.
second.
I'll second. So any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I also want to mention for those that may be tuning in, although it doesn't sound like there's a lot tuning in tonight, that we had on the agenda to also approve the updated transfer station rules and regulations. But we had a snafu as far as it being posted appropriately per Andrews bylaw 43.2. So out of abundance of caution, we pulled that from the agenda and we are reposting that. Andrew, you're never going to live this one down. We're going to repost it. It has been reposted, so we're going to
It
wait.
was a good idea, I think.
We're going to wait 7 days and just make sure anyone, there's very little being changed on this, but there are some changes. So we'll just do it right and we will approve that one shortly. Okay. All right. So reports. So I've got 3 things. So again, remember this is Women's Night. So we've got a new female firefighter, Tiffany Martinez. So Tiffany recently graduated from, make sure I get this right. So she went to the 50-day career recruit firefighting training program along with, let's see, about 15 people, sounds like, from towns all around us. So she is now working as a full-time firefighter in the fire department. And there she is behind us. So she's the one. So this is the class, right? Okay.
This is the department.
Oh, of course, there's Pendy. Okay, sorry. So I just don't know who's in the foster grants next to her. Who is that? I just can't tell. So obviously this is not the whole department.
No.
Okay, because we've got 4 with her, we've got 4 women in there now, and we've got a 5th that is on her way to being a firefighter. So 5 out of 20 or so is a pretty good number for women compared to what it used to be, for sure. So congratulations, Tiffany. Okay. All right. Second, and Bill will like this one. So we want to continue to let everyone know we are trying very hard to help Bill fill the civil engineer position that we added 7/1/24. So Vanessa is doing yeoman's work to get this out to as many places as we can think where we would be able to find a suitable candidate. I guess the market is just tight for this type of person. So, you know, anybody that's got a kid going to college may want to direct them toward engineering. But so if anybody hears this and has an idea of someone that may be fresh out of school without little experience, Bill is planning on training the person. And we have a job ready and waiting to fill. So, okay. And the last one is one that I'm going to try to do every single time. I'm going to pick 2 or 3 committees that we know we need some, we've got some vacancies to try to see if we can get some interest out there from some new people. So tonight's 3 are going to be Tricentennial, Personnel Board, and EDC. So Tricentennial is a committee that was formed to basically help us get ready for 2027, our 300th birthday. It's got 7 people on it, Vanessa. It's 7, and we've got 2 vacancies. One of those vacancies is for a veteran. So we need to try to fill that with a veteran, and then the other vacancy is at large. It's actually a great committee, and I think they're actually enjoying what they're doing. So I'm hoping that we'll get 2 more people to step up and join that group soon. Because they really are very busy as far as what they're doing. Personnel Board, we've got one vacancy and we're looking for, again, in the same theme as what we've been talking about. We're trying to find people that specialize in certain areas to fill some of these positions. So we're looking for someone, the town moderator who appoints Personnel Board is looking for a volunteer who's got a, hopefully, HR background to help the Personnel Board. So, because Barry Rubenstein resigned, I think in June. So that's a vacancy that we're trying to fill. So he's got a, big set of shoes to fill there. So hopefully we've got someone with an HR background in Southborough that'd be willing to apply for that. And we think we've got a lot of HR people in Southborough based on the census we looked at. So hopefully someone will hear this and raise their hand. The last one is our poor EDC. So it's got, we lowered the membership from 7 to 5 and they still got 2 vacancies. So we need to try to see what we can do to find people for that. Andrew has tried really hard to fill it with one person we met at the transfer station one time. So we're trying to find people who are interested in truly promoting the business climate in Southborough to help us get that committee back on its feet. So that's my 3 for tonight. All right, members' reports. So who's doing the update to the one-stop application?
That's neat.
Okay.
So as everyone will remember, one of our select board goals was to submit an application for a one-stop grant for the spring that focuses on Route 9 zoning. And following up on a joint meeting that Kathy and I had with the chair and vice chair of the planning board, I'm gonna just be speaking with the planning board about what we're doing on Monday Monday the 22nd, just to review with them again what we're looking to do with the one-stop application and solicit any input or feedback that they have.
Thank you. Anybody else with a members report? Mark?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Okay, consent agenda. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, it's not, Vanessa. Okay, so I'll do it again. So moving on, consent agenda, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Old F. F.
Old, which one?
F.
F, okay.
A for me.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so Bill, you're approving Steve is on here too. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve B, C, D, E, and G on the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, let's start with A, which is minutes. I tried to. I said G. Did everybody hear me say G?
Yes.
I meant to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. You too.
Yes.
Right. We've only held 2, the minutes and F.
A and F. Yeah.
Yep, A and F.
I thought we held G. Didn't, okay.
No, G is does. We're having to
Yep.
reappoint this because
Yep.
they didn't get into what's there to hold.
Misunderstood.
We're just having to redo it again.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So everybody okay with A and F? So Sam, A.
June 6th, no comment. June 10th on line 3, to be consistent with what we do with other minutes, I'd note that Marguerite was absent from the June 10th meeting.
Okay.
June 18th, lines 387 and 403, Hegarty is misspelled.
Okay, go slow. Which one?
June 18th,
Okay.
line 387 and 403. Mr. Hegarty's name is misspelled.
387 and 403.
403, yeah.
Yep.
ERT instead of ARTY.
It's spelled right at 403.
Okay, I thought both of them were ERTY. Well, whatever.
So we're talking Jim Haggerty.
But I agree with you on 387.
Okay. Wow, okay.
Okay, so 387 is Jim Haggerty too?
Yeah,
Okay, so okay, Haggerty's wrong.
okay. And then on June 28th,
Oh, okay, so can we stay on the
Okay.
18th for a second? Because I've got a few.
okay, sure.
All right, so on the 18th, I've got, and by the way, I thought she did an excellent job on these minutes.
Yeah, tough one.
Seriously, that was a tough meeting. Okay, so where Vanessa go? She's gonna know the answer to this. I think that Farley's misspelled on 138 and 139. I think he's Farley.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, on 171, I think at the end of the sentence, instead of saying whether or not the committee could be merged, I think it should say should be merged. We know it could be. The
Yep.
question was, should it be? So I think should's a better descriptor there. Okay, now this is one, so look at lines 254, 55, 56. Al, this is for you. Mr. Hamilton reported that he met with the trustees of Chestnut Hill Farm and discussed the return of farming to the site. The trustees stated that a potential barrier to becoming an agricultural site is that they've experienced difficulty obtaining liquor licenses. Did they say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I understand they want the liquor license. I get that, but why is that a barrier to becoming an agricultural site?
It's really a question of,
Raising money?
yeah, it's really a question of sort of having agriculture be the profitable enterprise. And, you know, so it was the liquor licenses were centered around their farm dinners.
Okay,
And, you know, it's really a question of, you know, creating the conditions that allow them to run a profitable enterprise.
okay, so they're trying to raise some more money to.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, so then that's fine. Okay, that's all I've got, Andrew.
No, you mentioned the other change that I had, which was to Farley's last name.
All right, okay, so now, Sam,
Um,
what have you got on the last set?
Okay, on
28th?
28th, line 13 and 29, Houlihan is misspelled.
Ooh. That's a tough name to spell, so she spelled it phonetically. Okay, so Houlihan, it's Houlihan, I think.
Hoolahan.
Yeah, the I should be in
What
it.
is it?
A instead of I, Hoolahan.
There's no U?
No.
Okay, all right, so sorry, Marnie. Okay, so we'll get that one fixed. But again, I want us to go back to the 18th. She did a great job on those minutes.
Yep.
That was a tough meeting to do minutes for. Okay, so, Sam, you'll make a motion to approve all the minutes as amended.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, Al, you have held F.
Yeah, I think that particularly when we are talking about appointing people to committees with substantial scopes of authority, and the CPAC committee is certainly one of those, that we ought to actually interview the person to make sure that their views are aligned with the goals that this committee has stated. And so in particular, in this particular case, this committee has set as a goal to move the housing funds from the CPA funds to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I think that we should be appointing people whose goals are aligned with the goals of this elected body. And so I have no axe to grind against Ms. Warden. I'm sure she's more than qualified, but I'd like to understand what her views are before we appoint her. I think in the past, we have tended to not give sufficient consideration to that sort of matter.
So you'd like this held till she comes in?
Yes.
That's wrong, okay. Anybody else?
We talked with her fairly extensively when we appointed her. And I guess, Al, with all due respect, I'm less focused on making sure that somebody who signs the select board pledge when they get appointed to committees. I mean, I think that I have a reasonable confidence that most of the people we appoint are capable of evaluating the facts and exercising good judgment. And it's a delicate balance in the sense that I think you want to be supportive of people and you want to give them some rope to do what makes sense. So I guess I come down more on the side of flexibility. Vanessa, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in favor of appointing.
I'd be in favor of appointing her, yeah.
Marguerite?
We spoke with her last time and I'm in favor of appointing her.
Andrew?
I'll completely understand your point. You know, here, just some of the background, this has been a seat which has been vacant for a long time. And I think in fairness, where I know I in particular, when she came, and expressed interest in joining the OSPC. I had asked her some questions about whether she'd be interested in, whether we'd be able to get kind of a 2-for-1 by appointing someone to that committee. We finally get this other committee seat filled, particularly where, they face a quorum issue. I think I'm satisfied with appointing Ms. Warren to the CPC.
So Al, I'm also sympathetic with your position. However, one of the things we asked Freddie to do that night is to get this done. We asked her to get her minutes caught up and we asked her to get this done and they got it done. So because of that, I support appointing Sarah tonight to the CPC. All right.
Okay, I will
Anything
move
else,
to
Al?
appoint Sarah Warden to the Community Preservation Act Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that's a
Going to
4-1
vote.
vote.
No, I'm going to abstain.
Okay, so it's a 4-0-1 vote. Bridget. All right, thank you. Okay, so moving on. For this. Okay, bring her over. So bring over Kristen.
Hi, thank you for bringing me over. Can you hear me?
We can.
I just want to clarify one thing to make sure I understood. This question's directed to Mr. Hamilton, no one else. Mr. Hamilton, I just want to clarify your opinion. If you can, if people do not agree with the select board's overall position with CPC funding or CPC funding use and or policies, you don't feel they should be elected to related boards? Am I understanding that correctly?
Firstly, people are not elected to appointed boards.
I'm sorry. So don't get me on semantics. Appointed. So as CPC, as I understand it, every committee, for example, I was on recreation, votes their own committee member for those positions, and then they're appointed. So excuse my language there. Please don't get me on semantics. But again, do you feel those people on those committees should always agree with basically your position?
I think elections have consequences, and that this board was elected to set policy direction for the town. And so, yes, I actually do think that we wouldn't necessarily want to appoint somebody who was opposed to the policy directions of this town. As I've mentioned before, it's an open secret that I disagree with the planning board with respect to their treatment of the tree laws. And as a consequence, they should be perfectly within their rights to not appoint me to some subcommittee, because they are an elected board, elected to make the policies in their area of expertise and authority. So, yes, I think elections should have consequences, and elections should help the people, elect people to make policy decisions and set policy direction for the town.
Thank you,
I
Al.
would just suggest this would be a great topic for a future meeting that's public, maybe a public forum, because, and I'm not gonna, obviously, we've all read the articles, we've all read the opinions. I'm not going to, repeat them, but obviously that's kind of a disturbing opinion for many people. And I think if this is the opinion of the select board and or the opinion of a select board member, I think we should have a more open discussion about that, because it's affecting the entire community when you start suggesting that we need to alter who is volunteering, which is already hard. We all know that, right? Like, it's already hard to get volunteers, but now you're going to get selective whether or not they agree with your position. So I would just ask for the next select board meeting or a future select board meeting, because I know it's summer, that this is a topic on the agenda, that we publicize it, and we ask the community to come and talk about this.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, So I will say, I don't think you have to worry about the planning board asking you to serve on a committee anytime in the near future. So moving on. Okay. Andrew, I'm going to turn this one over to you because as I've told you, this is a little confusing to me as far as what we're trying to end up with here.
Yes. So you'll recall that one of our goals has been to bring forward to the fall special town meeting a article that combines the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee and SHOPC into one committee that merges the responsibilities of those committees. There appears to be a pretty broad consensus in favor of that. You remember Lisa Brasio suggested she would like to help with working with a group of people to try to put together a consensus article. And we know that SHOPC designated members to help out. And Al and I also, I think, were appointed at one time or another to do this. So then as a next step, I was about to begin organizing a time for us to meet. Someone suggested that I check with town council to see whether this is one of those situations where we have created we would be creating a working group that qualified as a public body that would need to be subject to the open meeting law. I checked with town council and his opinion was that we should do that. So thinking ahead, if one of the things that this working group needs to do is to post an agenda, what does the town clerk require in order for us to post an agenda? Town clerk requires a charge. So I put together, there's a draft in the packet. It's just one lengthy sentence which describes what it is. And before the meeting, I spoke further with Mr. Hegarty about it and have some revisions. I have another version and I'll just read it out loud since it's not in the packet, but it's the same kind of content. But and so I'm just going to ask that the board approve this charge, and then we will move as quickly as we can to actually getting this group meeting with the goal that we'd probably need by the last meeting in August. I think we're going to have another meeting in the end of August to have a draft article. I mean, this is not rocket science of just selecting, the qualifications and appointing authority of the new committee. So it says, horrible name for it. There's no other name you could think of, but the Affordable Housing Consolidation Working Group shall consist of 2 members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee selected by the AHTFC, 2 members of the Southborough Housing Opportunity Partnership Committee, SHOPC, selected by SHOPC, and 1 at-large member selected by the Select Board. The working group's charge shall be creation of a draft article for the special town meeting to be held on September 30th, 2024, consolidating AHTFC and SHOPC into one committee that merges the responsibilities of these 2 committees. Charge of this working group shall expire October 31st, 2024. And the reason why I had that a month after the town meeting is just in case, there's a meeting necessary to approve a last set of minutes or something like that. So the idea would be that Select Board endorses this charge, we send it to town clerk's office, and then this working group gets assembled and it would post minutes and post meeting agendas and have minutes and work to create a consensus article. So I was a little surprised that this was the conclusion of town council, but it is what it is.
Okay, let's do what he says.
So I move that the board approve the Affordable Housing Consolidation Working Group charge that I just read to you. Yep.
Sorry,
Oh,
but,
second.
Okay.
Discussion.
okay, but
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Go ahead, Marguerite.
we can still
Discussion.
discuss. Okay, so here's my question. Right now, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee consists of select board members.
Dorian Jazinski and Bill Bolin.
Yes. So I guess my question would be, one of the things that would needed to get clarified is, are you going to bring the select board over, just my question, over whole cloth into the new committee?
No, the whole idea
No.
just has been to do exactly the opposite.
Right. We don't need to be on this committee. We are
That-
not.
I'm looking to
affordable housing
deliberate about
experts.
the contents of the
Yep.
composition of the article, not just to create. the-
Okay, that was just my question, and I'm just, okay, all right.
Actually, the authorizing state law does require some form of the select board to be present.
One member.
Yes, one member.
One sounds good.
Yep.
Not 5.
Yep.
Right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Andrew's made the motion, Sam seconded, we've discussed it. All in favor of approving this charge for the Affordable Housing Consolidation Working Group.
Catchy name.
All right.
Go for
And
it.
then I want to make a motion to, assuming Lisa Braccio is still willing to be the member at large, to appoint
Yes.
Lisa to the Affordable Housing Consolidation Working Group.
I think we already basically did that, but
Well,
that,
let's just reconfirm it. Okay, so,
Second.
second on that.
Second.
Right, all in favor of Lisa? No? Okay, so abstain or no? No, so it's a 4, everybody vote, okay, so let's do it again. All in favor of Lisa? 4, okay, and all opposed? 1. Okay, so 4-1 to appoint Lisa to the working group. So it's going to be Al, Andrew, Lisa, Paul Desmond was appointed originally, and then since Dorian was originally going to have to replace her.
that's correct. And
Right.
we'll just have to reach out to Doug Mance. I think,
I believe Doug has actually posted that.
Yeah.
Actually, there's one minor item, which is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund will actually have to appoint the 2 members,
we could do that.
which we can do on Friday.
Okay,
Yep.
so you'll do that on Friday? All right, done?
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
so we need to make sure we get that to Bridget as far as the updated, so she can attach the right charge to the
Yep.
minutes. Yep. Okay, moving on. So this one's pretty easy. So we've talked about, again, trying to make committees more efficient and effective. So to that, we believe that changes should be made to our stewardship and scholarship. We're not going to talk about stewardship tonight at the request of Joyce Greenleaf, its chair. They want to meet and discuss what's being proposed, which said fine too. She's going to let us know when the meeting is, and Sam will go to that meeting because he's the one that has been tasked with proposing the revised charges. So that's stewardship. Scholarship is really easy. And I can tell you, scholarship was a mess. It is a mess. So this is just cleaning up what was done decades ago. So Sam, you want to take over on this one?
Yeah, the simple goal on both of these is to actually create a charge. When Mark looked at the history of this, he discovered that neither of these committees actually ever had an official charge, as all other committees do. And so trying to basically memorialize what the intent was for these committees, and this language that in the packet basically came out of this, basically the description on the town website for the committees, plus some updates for town code additions here. And for the scholarship committee, I'd actually reached out last week to both Joyce Greenleaf, chair of stewardship, and Lisa Braccio, who's chair of the scholarship committee, to say, here's what the proposal is, and invite comments. And as Kathy mentioned, Joyce said that they wanted to look at it and provide some comments, which is fine. Lisa responded to me, I guess, last night and said that she would like to get the committee together, but they don't have people yet appointed to it, and they're probably going to meet in September. I responded to her that she was welcome to come in tonight, or other committee members are, to talk about it. But I saw this as totally administrative. There's nothing here that changes what the committee is doing now or anything else, simply memorializing what their charge is. And so I told her I'm prepared to continue to propose that we do this tonight. And if the committee comes back later and has comments or questions, it's our committee. We can make changes later if we choose to. So this gets it in the record books as it should be. So that's my proposal for this.
Anybody have an issue with voting on scholarship tonight? Al? Andrew? Okay. All right,
No,
Sam,
no
you wanna-
comments in the, or hands up in the audience either. So.
Okay, so Sam, you want to make the motion?
So I move that we approve the charge for the scholarship committee as in the packet.
Second?
Second.
Andrew seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Okay, check that one off. Yep, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to look at the draft of the proposed warrant for September 30th. Everybody have a copy? So I think there's 16 potential articles right now. Am I right?
Well,
We're just gonna look at the order. So tonight is not really to go into depth. I do think we're going to have an extra meeting. Andrew, why do you keep saying August 30th for a meeting? Have we really set August 30th for a meeting? August 6th is the one we agreed to. And I know you said that last meeting too, and I meant to go back and look why you think we're meeting on the 30th. So the
That-
30th wouldn't be a Tuesday.
That rings a bell.
That's
with me
where,
too, actually.
that's what I thought, but I know we're going to have to meet another time, but 30th is not. a
No, I don't remember. The 30th is a Friday.
Yeah.
Looks like, so that
So,
makes
okay.
no sense.
So our only scheduled meeting for August right now is August 6th. Okay, so there's 16. Mark has taken a stab at ordering them. Remember the commitment we've made to planning board is to put MBTA as the first substantive article. So keeping that in mind as far as looking at this, substantive is in the eye of the beholder. I would say that 3, 4, 5, and 6 could be deemed substantive. So I propose moving 3, 4, 5, and 6 after MBTA. I think 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9 are very routine. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up on a consent agenda. So the MBTA actually does go first after consent.
I think there's benefit to having, where you have one article which attracts, attract the most people.
Yeah.
To have it placed in the order so that you're gonna have.
Have a quorum all the way
Yeah,
through, yeah.
exactly. I mean, even just thinking to the practice of you come and you just vote on the one thing you came for there and then you leave is not really a good practice. And you can structure a warrant in a way that people end up participating in things that they might not otherwise have participated in. And I think to the November 2021 special town meeting where I think the downtown district was passed, I think that was last.
No, we wasn't last, but it wasn't first either.
Later,
you
yeah.
had
It was
10
definitely
It
later.
was like 10 articles and it was fairly close to the first. I remember what came afterwards and they were fairly routine too. So here, I mean, look at 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those could end up with a lot of discussion. And there's probably gonna be some questions as to what on earth is going on with Breakneck Hill when we're asking for much more money than what we had previously approved. You could see Atwood, and generally some discussion. You could see if we end up increasing the police or fire department budgets for fiscal year 25 because of the study, that could have quite a bit of discussion. I don't know about the EDC coordinator, but
Number 16 is gonna be discussed.
oh yeah, so remember we got rec coming too.
That's a good point.
So I just, this meeting, I assume we would have had a special time meeting, but I still think that the centerpiece of this is MBTA and and they have asked for it to go early. So, Sam.
Yeah, I guess I'm torn about that one. I think that you will probably lose a number of people after the MBTA community article, whenever that happens. So,
So we lock the doors.
yeah.
It's not something we need to decide tonight.
I mean, but again, I think.
No, but we still got to start thinking about it because again, we got one meeting in August and then September's here. Mark said go to the printer the first part of September,
Yeah, I mean,
so.
another thought is, with not last year, the annual town meeting before, the article that drew the most attendance was the Gonkplex, but
Yeah.
Gonkplex was not just placed number 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
No, we did that
Completely-
strategically
yeah.
to get some things, we wanted an audit there for the park. Now we did do, Hopkinton after that, but we definitely wanted the park to go, we definitely put the park articles in front of that, so we'd have a big audience there for that. So yes, we did do this.
Maybe reordering this to put the MBTA thing sort of in the middle somewhere after some things that we also want a sizable.
Yeah, I think where it's placed right now makes some sense.
Well, I definitely think that rec should come after because.
I agree.
Okay, because I still think those are your two real substantive ones. I just don't know what anybody's gonna say about Breakneck Hill or Atwood. Somebody may say, how did we get here? And we'll say no good deed goes unpunished as far as Atwood and Breakneck is a, long story.
I could put those two later though, frankly.
Those two,
Yeah, Breakneck and Atwood, I could put them after the.
I could see Atwood, but Breakneck Hill is the subject of an administrative consent order with DEP that we're bound into.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
really, there's not a whole lot of
True.
latitude
Yeah.
for that, the one other comment too is you need to take I think a holistic look at the whole warrant and think about if MBTA is going to take up most of your time or potentially your evening, you've got to look at what's going to be left and what that's going to draw for a second night. Or I forget, I think it was Andrew's point, if people are just going to leave, what have you got left to handle some of these other things? So I do agree, my, again, my attempt to what I think is non-substantive and, non-substantive doesn't mean it's going to pass without a conversation. But, I don't think we're going to get, into anything deep, but I think you can make an argument for some of those things, Atwood, for example. So, you could move it around, but, I looked at it that, again, MBTA is the headliner. Every headliner has an opening band.
Yeah.
So you want to try to do some of these other things before you get into that substance.
Yeah.
But
I vacillate on how much time the MBTA thing is going to take. I mean, we've had a number of forums, a lot of people who are particularly affected by it have gone through sort of the education process there, understand that while we may not be enthusiastic about it, we don't have a lot of choice in terms of getting something done here. So there's a lot more understanding of that now than there was a few months ago, certainly. So I can argue that one either way. I think there's some chance that people say, yep, got to do something. This is the best solution that we can come up with and let's get it done versus let's argue, go back to redo it kind of thing. I think that's been tried a number of times in the forum meetings and people have heard that it just doesn't work very well.
I think there's some placeholders here too. The board has to decide as to whether you think that in 6 weeks you're going to develop, something, in terms of the transferring of affordable housing funds from CPA to the trust.
Right.
Are we going to take a look at trying to revise the dates for annual town meeting? We've talked about CPA, we've talked about stormwater. So I think the board is just going to make some decisions as to whether you think that you're going to be able to pull that together or whether it's better that we should, focus these more towards the annual or, some other time. But that's just something for the board to think
I
about.
sort
The
of spoke-
CPA surcharge certainly tenuous and the stormwater is tenuous.
Mhm.
And if we do go forward with transferring, or trying to transfer the CPA, affordable housing funds, I think that should come right after the discussion on the new affordable housing committee. Those two make sense to go.
I don't think
together.
you're going to be able to transfer the CPA funds unless the CPAC
Right.
votes.
Oh, I agree.
so.
I think they
And-
have to vote for it, right? That's a requirement. They have to agree.
Right.
To be on.
And they've indicated that
So
they're
far,
not
no.
terribly enthusiastic about
Yeah.
that.
But if
Maybe-
it were to be on there, they were to agree,
Yeah.
then I think it should come after the committee reform.
So I think the town is under the gun with the MBTA communities and I kind of think that would be good to deal with while everybody's fresh. I don't know. It just seems like that's to me, that is the major thing looking at us right now because we're under a time crunch.
Yep. I see that early to middle kind of thing in the agenda, frankly.
Okay, so look at it right now. Is there an agreement on moving any of them after MBTA? Again, I think that 2, 7, 8,
8
and 9
could
for
go.
sure would be on a consent agenda if there is one. So I wouldn't even worry about those, right? Those are easy.
Yep.
1, 2, 1 simple, and that's coming out of Paul's overlay. So that one's simple. So I'm not worried about those. So I'm focused on whether we want to keep 3, 4, 5, and 6 where they are. And it sounds like maybe we've talked about moving Atwood after MBTA.
Maybe, I mean, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are budget items.
But I thought we said we're going to keep 3 because we have to do it.
Yeah.
We're in an order, so we don't like it, but we've got to do it. We've got to increase the money there because of the asbestos.
Mark, do we know that that's a reasonably firm number at this point? I thought they were still trying to figure that out.
The upper limit that we have is going to be the upper limit of it.
Aren't they doing more test borings and whatever to determine what's?
I think they've done the extent of the test borings. I can check with Melissa. I think the range was, from somewhere between, almost $600,000 all the way to another 2.1.
Okay.
I think that, and our LSP thinks that that low number is too low. So that probably is going to fall somewhere in the middle or upper high of that range.
Okay. Yeah, the last conversation I heard, and I may not be fully up to speed, was that they still are trying to figure out more detail. There were a couple of landfills that take this material.
There are
that they
two.
were
There's
looking-
one in Maine, one in New York. I think they're focusing on the one in New York.
And they were trying to find something else, I thought, but I don't know. But again, as much
Yeah.
information as we can get of that certainly would be helpful.
Yep.
We got to deal with it. You're right,
Right.
one way or the other.
Again, I thought we were having the special meeting for the MBTA discussion.
Well, the past few years, the consensus has been that we probably need to have a special town meeting most years to deal with supposedly non-budget stuff. That's not the case here. We got budget stuff on here. So I don't think it's just MBTA, but yes, that's probably the primary driver of this one. But it's not the only
So to your
driver.
point, you were suggesting that
One's a
two.
piece of cake, two's a piece of cake. So just ignore those for a second. I think if Paul does a consent agenda, those will be on there.
So certainly like 7, 8, and 9.
Yes,
I
those
think
are-
things that can go after the MBTA.
All right, they will be on his consent agenda too. There's
Okay.
not, those are easy. So I think 1, 2, 7, 8, 9 would be the consent agenda if that's what he does. If I were him, that's what I do, not to tell him what to
And
do.
3, 4, 5, 6 are
won't
the
like
money items.
Yeah. And 2 of those are fiscal year 25 budget items, possibly. Please,
Which is just for our, placeholder purposes, I would suggest that if you want to move, do you think that the presence of them probably on a consent agenda means they're okay to stay where they are?
yeah.
Okay, then
Yeah. And
I'm basically okay with the way this is ordered right now, and I think it makes sense.
other than maybe moving Atwood below,
No, I don't.
Leave it
I don't-
there? Okay.
Leave it there.
okay. Anybody or everybody agree with Andrew as far as for now, leaving it the way it is because we think much of what's coming in front of MBTA is either going to be really easy. There's our town clerk. It's going to be really easy or will be on a consent agenda. No one is going to sit there and talk about reducing the pilot committee from 7 to 5. This chair wants it reduced.
Is
She
the,
doesn't have people on it.
did we ask this already? I'm sorry, I can't turn my head. Is the appropriation for cleanup of the former Atwood water tank site gonna be over $100,000?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's gonna be a long discussion.
Well, again, I'm not sure what choice we have on that one, right?
I think we need some more information before we proceed.
Okay, so maybe we leave it alone for now and we talk about it again on August 6th.
It may well be that that one gets moved to the annual town meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. I think this is not a bad balance here. I mean, the MBTA thing comes early, not necessarily first, but early.
can you ask Paul if he intends to do a consent agenda for
I
this
can.
one? Okay. And tell him if he needs suggestions, we'll be happy to give them to him.
Vanessa has her hand up.
Okay, Vanessa? Okay, okay, so can you bring her over?
Hi, can you hear me? It's Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive.
Yes, we can.
Marguerite, I agree with you on Atwood Street, so thank you. I think moving that down is a mistake. The only thing I was going to ask is why not, we need people to show up to the meeting and what they care about. And I think My Southwood does a great job publishing the warrant. You guys have it out on the site. I get that, but we know that people are, they're busy. Have we considered asking the public in terms of what they care about on the agenda to help what you're trying to accomplish? Because I know in the times in the past, it's been discouraging to some to see things kind of felt like buried at the end. So I appreciate all the contemplation you're all giving, but why not ask the people that we need to vote? Like via, quite frankly, the Southborough Community Facebook page seems to be the most widely viewed page these days, but why not ask them? Because we need them to show up.
Because I think you get with 100 people, 100 different answers as far as what to do here.
Well, but if we do a good job of publicizing it, maybe we don't get 100 people, maybe we get more. I'm just saying, like, you're kind of it's a very important thing, right? Guys, we know like people coming the first night versus people coming the second night. So why do this in a vacuum when you're guessing what may or may not be important to people and instead survey the town?
I just don't think the survey would accomplish very much.
I think
though.
all these things are important, I guess, and I think it's our job to set the
I
agenda
agree.
and let people show up.
Well, like, I'd be happy to take on a survey because the fact is, Kathy, you just wanted to push Atwood down. And I know for a fact that a lot of people would have been upset about that. We might miss some people attending. So I just don't see the harm in.
Kristen, I don't know why you say I want to place Atwood down. I'm trying to make sure that MBTA gets the focus that.
No. And I agree with that completely. But okay, so I might have misunderstood your comments and that's fine. I'm just saying, let's ask the town.
Kristen, I've talked to Mimi Luttrell. She really would like the MBTA to, she'd like it to go first, number one.
Oh, no, I agree with MBTA. I'm actually not disagreeing with that whatsoever. I agree with everything Marguerite said, that this is really probably the reason why the most important reason we're having it. I'm just suggesting, hearing all of this debate amongst 5 people, why not ask the town, what are you going to show up for?
All right, so thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to leave it the way it is for now, right? And we'll talk about it again on August 6th and make sure that we don't want to rearrange.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Al.
So we've had a couple of meetings with the chiefs, the town administrator, and Sam and myself and the proponents of the virtual rec. And we are currently trying to set up a meeting with our neighboring communities. As you'll recall, the board expressed interest in the concept of a virtual rec and wanted to explore it in more detail. The first sort of go, no go decision is whether any of our neighboring communities have any interest in or sufficient interest in this to have us actually go to the state. And Mark informs me that we're likely to have that meeting at the end of the month. It's the summer, and so we try to move things along to see whether there is interest. I would think if there is interest, then we're going to be moving as quickly as possible to collect the state's input. If there's not interest, then I would expect that we would be making a decision at the August 6th select board meeting about, the direction we want to go.
And do you anticipate that would possibly involve a recommendation about a specific rec that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we're going to make a I'm probably speaking a little bit out of turn, but I think that the rec that makes the most sense at this point is the Metro West, the Westboro rec. That seems to be the path of least resistance. There is a strong case to be made for having a rec that also integrates your mutual aid system. I worked with the fire chief to pull some records, and the idea that there is time to be trimmed off the responses does appear to be, in fact, be the case. And so I think that if we were to decide to go with a conventional physical rec, the recommendation would most likely be Westboro.
And that's what we take to town meeting in end of September, presumably.
Yeah.
So Al, let me just ask you as far as your plan here. So if you remember, for the Hopkinton water connection, didn't have to take it to town meeting. We wanted to take it to town meeting so town meeting could opine, weigh in, hear the details. So what we did was put a small article on the warrant that had to be voted on. It was the money for the audit of the design there, but then we took the opportunity to do, complete presentation as far as how it was going to work. So what is the vote you're going to ask for at town meeting?
Depending on the direction we go, I would think we would want a vote on that particular direction. I'll let Sam tell me if he thinks I'm wrong, but I think if we decide to go with the Westboro rec, I think we would say we want to join the Westboro rec, and these are the reasons why. And to lay out the case, I think I'm increasingly convinced that we're not going to, in the long run, save any money. We may not spend more, but we aren't going to save more money versus what we are spending today. But if we went with either a physical rec or the virtual rec, we will see deeper and more effective communication services that will be available to the town.
Right.
And
So
that-
you want town meeting, I just want to make this clear, you want town meeting to approve the select board entering into an IMA with Westboro and whomever at that point. That's what you want. town-
I'm not asking.
Not approve, yeah.
I,
Approving, entering into an IMA. You won't have the IMA done by then, I don't
No.
think.
It's a non-binding vote.
yeah, so I wouldn't ask for approval. I would
Right.
ask
So
for
I'm just trying to-
recommendation, but yes.
Trying to imagine what the language of the article is going to be that you're going to ask the town to vote for.
Basically to support the select board.
Yeah.
In pursuing the IMA
With Westboro,
with, yeah, at that, if that's the choice, which it looks like it will be, but it's still not totally set.
right? So that's what you, that's, I'm just trying to understand.
I think, you know, the alternative would be to support either joining a physical rec with Westboro or a virtual rec. You know, that would be another possibility if we get to that point.
Well, I also think it makes sense to see if we can have the chiefs, police chief and fire chief here for the meeting on the 6th, where we'd be talking about this in more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we need a special meeting in August to do it because you're not quite ready, we can do that too. We'll work around everybody's vacation.
So we do need, I think, on the 6th to place a stake in the ground. Because I think there are things we need to communicate to the community before town meeting. You know, I think that going on Southborough Access Media and explaining what we've been doing and why, going before the Dolmens Club and explaining what we've been doing and why, and other civic groups.
Maybe
you
a
know,
public forum.
and a public forum, yes. You know, there, yeah. I don't want a repeat of the last experience, and I would probably lobby to move this up on the agenda, but for that reason.
That's a good point.
But you know, if we're going to put this on the agenda and ask for people's support, then I think we need to make our best effort at securing that support.
So not to beat this too much, because you could also ask for general support for doing a rec and without being specific, details, select board to work out. You could do it that way. You know, the last time the experience was, those were citizens petitions too. They weren't select boards petitions. Those were citizen petitions that
Right.
came forth. So this would be much different.
It
as
seems
far
to
as-
me it's much more effective and transparent to say, if we know what the specific proposal is going to be, I think we ought to lay that out for people. And if it is Westboro or if it's virtual, we ought to explain that, communicate, educate people as much as we can and get their feedback on that, because we said we would do that. And
If where it's going to be the details of what are going to determine someone's decision, I agree with you. And
as much as we-
Westboro may give people more comfort than just a general, we know we're going to do it. So
correct, yeah.
I don't know.
So my other question, Al, did you say that it looks now from the information you have that going to a regional rec will not save money to the town versus what we're doing now?
In the long run, I think that's correct. I
Not save
think-
much operating money, but
Yes,
if the state support, the state subsidy for the first 5 years actually
Yeah.
would save a
Yeah.
substantial amount of money.
Also,
Yeah, there's a
Ongoing capital cost.
Right.
Yeah,
capital
there-
cost-
there's a substantial savings for the first few years as the state covers our operating expenses. But in the long run, I think we aren't going to save a lot of money on the operating side
Compared
state-
to what
that-
we have right now.
compared to what we're with one
Right.
with one dispatcher.
But
I
if
will
we were
point
to
out-
double or triple that, we would save money going to.
Yes.
Yes.
Assuming that the state receives federal money to implement these programs, which is all up in the.
They
Well,
get
mo-
this money from cell phones. So Margaret, they get the money for this through
The other place where
cell phone
we will save money, or we believe we will save money, is on the capital side. where
Technology, yeah.
The state will take over responsibility for, or the rec via the state will take over responsibility for managing things like our radio networks.
Yep.
And that is not a trivial expense. There's a lot of very sophisticated technology that is very expensive. And so there will be some capital savings, but on the operating side, to give you an example, Foxborough, the assessment for each of their towns is now $600,000, which is about what we spend all in on a single dispatcher system. So I think the reality is that this is not about saving operating expense. This is about improving public safety with the added benefit that maybe we will save some on the capital side. And, but it's really about having deeper and more effective support than we can do by ourselves. And by the way, we are having trouble hiring dispatchers.
Yes, we are.
We're having trouble hiring people, period. And, there's a gigantic demographic shift going on in the labor market right now. And we're going to need to think more and more about non-traditional ways of providing the services that we need. And so, regionalization is, I think, something that we're going to be facing again and again and again over the next 15 to 20 years. Not that I'm going to have to worry about it.
We're already doing that.
Oh, come on, Al, be optimistic, optimistic.
Okay, so I,
Not gonna worry about it.
right,
Okay.
but I think what my question is it premature to bring this to town meeting in the fall?
No.
No.
We've been working on this quite a while.
Yeah, I know, but
2
in
months.
terms of the situation is still fluid.
I don't think it will be that fluid by time.
Yeah.
All
But
don't-
even the, Mr. Butler and, the folks who are interested in the virtual I thought recognized that this just can't go on forever. At a certain point, we need
Yeah.
to, make a decision.
Yeah.
Right?
I just think that it could be a wildly unpopular decision if we move too fast into a rec that turns out not to work out.
I just don't think anybody's going to characterize our movement as too fast.
Yeah, I think
Wait.
this is moving at the tip at a fairly standard pace for government.
So I'm still surprised at Foxborough being 600 because it was 250 when we went down there. So I don't know what's caused them to go
Yeah.
from 250
And
to
Holbrook
600.
and Neshoba are still around 300 or something like
Yeah,
that.
so
part of
something's
Foxborough-
happened to their
Foxborough-
cost.
The state money, the state operating money is beginning to run
So
out.
maybe that's all it
Yeah.
is. They just don't have a
And,
subsidy.
or at least that's my supposition. The reality is when we did this study of the other recs, they're spending the same amount per dispatcher. They're spending, so it's there's not a lot of money to be saved because it's most, bit on the operating side, because the operating side is all labor. And as people like to tell me all the time, well, we can't cut anything because it's all labor. It's a different subject altogether. But in the long run, this is not about saving on the operating expense. This is about improving the services to the community and public and offering a deeper and more effective dispatch services. We've had, I'm not gonna go into that, but it's deeper and more effective dispatch services than we can afford to provide on our own.
I think the story all along has been improved public safety. Our new fire chief from Foxborough has some pretty compelling stories about why this makes a big difference in terms of the kind of calls you get that today we are not adequately staffed and we need to fix that. I think
Yeah.
that's to me.
And I will remind
Let him
people,
tell some of those stories at town
Yep,
meeting
yep.
too.
I voted against the agreement, the previous one, and I ran against the previous agreement. So, I have swung 180.
Yep. And John Butler has too. He initially thought, he was skeptical that we needed to shore up the dispatch operation, but he's definitely gone the 182. So, all right, anybody else on dispatch?
Well, thank you for your work on
I'll
this.
save you.
Al and Sam.
Yep. All right, Vanessa, anybody in our audience for final public comment? Jim, are you here to?
Not yet, but we're working on it.
There's still time.
This one.
It should
So-
be.
Son?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Jim Hagerty, Town Clerk. We're going to be sending an announcement out through the blog and some other people about vote by mail. They will be going to the post office next Thursday, so people should receive them next Thursday or Friday if they live in town. There's a caveat to vote by mail that we have people that had requested when the state sent the postcards out in December and people checked off to have ballots sent for all elections. If they wanted it mailed to say their winter address in Boca Raton, that's where all the ballots for the year will be sent until they complete another one. So we have situations where people receive their presidential primary ballot down in Florida. Then they came back to Southborough and didn't get the ballot in time for the town election because this post office is not allowed to forward ballots. They have to return to us. And now we have some of those people living at the Cape. So it's a little bit of chasing your tail. It's not a lot of people, but it does affect people. So it's spelt out on the applications, but frankly, people don't read the fine print. So we're sending some information out, and I can't say enough good things about the postmaster here in town and the folks at the post office. People will get the ballots and the ones in town will get them by Friday, next Thursday or Friday at the latest, and then out of town, they'll get them a couple of days later. So that's just, if anybody has questions, give me a call. We'll be glad to verify what address they've requested the ballot be sent to. And it's a very simple process for them to change the address if they want it mailed to an address in the Cape or back in Southborough. It's just one of the complexities of the system that we can't control. Finally, there are people that have called complaining to us because they received vote by mail postcards and they don't think that people should be allowed to vote by mail. Dial 1-800 Secretary of State. I have no say in the matter. It's a state statute requires that. And we have some people that are very hot under the collar. There's a lot of things I control. That's not one of them. So I'll give them Bill Galvin's cell phone number and they can have a chit chat with him. Thank you.
So what did we get? I just got a couple of things in the mail this week from the state. Another application to vote by mail. So I think it's a repeat of what came out in January.
Yes, the only people that received them over the past weekend are people that either who did not request a ballot for the September election. And in some cases, those are people that didn't request them for the September or the November elections as well. We had roughly 1,600 people, I think 1,640, that ballots were mailed out but people checked off all elections that we sent out for the local election. I think we had like a 30% return. And we'll have roughly the same amount. I'm guessing about 1,800 mailed out for this state primary as well. Yeah, some people are upset about that and there's nothing we can do about it.
So bottom line is if people did request ballots be mailed, the safe approach is to call the town clerk's office to confirm
Absolutely. Yep.
which address.
Yep. And we
This
can
is what
quickly
on record.
verify where it goes. This especially holds true for people that parents who thought they were doing their children a favor by signing them up for an address in college. And most kids' addresses, mailing addresses change between the spring and the fall. So we want to make sure the ballots actually end up at the right dormitory address for them.
Oh my gosh, they change addresses every year. So,
Yep. So
okay.
just give us a call. We'll be happy to track it down for them. It's an easy to fix.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Vanessa, anybody else in the audience? So no further public comment?
I'll
Okay.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Not too bad.
Thank you, Jeff. Another one.
What? I want to do